Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talking RV Tech, our episode for November. Today is the 9th, and my name's Dave Solberg. I'm one of your co-hosts, and we have Dustin Simpson from California RV Specialties with us. And this week we are lucky, and we have Zach with us back again. Welcome back, Zach. Last week he used his noggin, I guess, a little bit. So
I used it a little too much. Apparently, you can't open soup cans with your head.
That's true. That's true. And Dustin and I can, though, because we just used the top part. So we have somebody already. We got Vince has come in. Good evening. Looking forward to hearing a few things. Good, Vince. Let us know what kind of an RV you have, and if you got any questions, that are coming through. We've gotten quite a few questions this week, and I guess one of the ones that I want to start with, and I'll ask Zach this because it kind of falls back into our solar panel discussion that we had in the past there. And we and I talked about it a little bit. So I got a question that came in from one of the readers that said she has a solar panel, lithium batteries, and she's getting 20.4 volts, I believe it is, at her inverter. And that is too much. So the inverter, it shuts down and will not get to her, functions. So, I have my guess on what I think it is. And she did say her Victory controller is not controlling. I think she means Victron. So I'll let you take that.
So it depends on the situation. I know you and I talked a little bit about this, like you said. She didn't give us all the information she could have. I don't know how she has her batteries hooked up. Maybe she has them hooked up, in series when they should be in parallel. If it is a little bit of an older Victron MultiPlus system, they physically had a switch on the unit that dictated the voltage level that it was supposed to be at. So it could be something as simple as flipping the switch to 12 volt,
Right. Yeah, and though I looked up the Victron series, and there's so many different ones out there. Yeah. Keystone is using that, pretty exclusively in their stuff. But you can do 12, 24, or 48. So it could be possible that she's got it hooked up. And one of the comments you made, hooked in series. We had I think it was a Coachman that came in almost in my backyard. It was in an empty lot next to our subdivision for the RAGBRAI big bike ride across America. And, there's 15,000 bike riders, and there's all these RVs, and they camp everywhere. And I saw this motorhome out there, and it was there for 3 days. Normally they stay overnight. And there was a Jeep in the front trying to jump. And anytime your tow vehicle's in the front of your vehicle, there's something wrong.
Yes. And
I went over there, and they couldn't get their slide rooms back in, and they couldn't get their generator to run. And I checked their batteries, and they were completely dead. They had bought car batteries from an auto parts store. And so I said, you're going to have to go get deep cycle batteries. And they ran and got deep cycle batteries, and I saw they were still out there. And I came back, and they said, well, the generator still doesn't start. And I looked at it, and I put the multimeter on it. It was 24 volts. Mm-hmm. Their Coachman was set up with 6-volt batteries hooked in series, like you said, positive to negative. They went out and got 12-volt batteries and hooked them up in series. We hooked them up just like the old ones. You can't do that.
Yeah, not good.
No, and so they burned some inline fuse to the generator.
Yeah,
and so
the big main fuse to it. Yeah.
Yep. We couldn't find it, and I said, you're going to have to get a hold of CoachNet, because normally they're either right here or they're in the generator compartment. Mm-hmm. Some of them are an inline blowout fuse. Some of them, like the Thor we worked on out here, it's a knife switch almost. Yeah. Fuse in there. So anyway, that was interesting. I looked at that and I thought, you can't just go out and swap batteries out without understanding that configuration. So we got some questions that came in here. The first one is, hey, Barbara's back. Barbara, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Burns, South Carolina. And Vince has a Keystone Cougar 326 RDS. Cool. That's a great one. So now our fifth wheel is stored in a fully enclosed building. I fully extend the slides when not camping so I can keep the cabinet doors open to prevent moisture buildup inside the cabinets. I also run a dehumidifier 24/7 year-round. Is it okay to keep the slides extended for months during winter storage, or best to close the slides? Am I overthinking the cabinet moisture buildup with both slides and cabinets closed? Good point. What do you think, guys?
We actually kind of touched on this on a previous one that we did. It doesn't really matter the manufacturer of the slide system. They all recommend them to be functioned. They're not just made to be sat there and left, out position the whole time. As for the moisture with all the cabinet doors open, I think if you're using enough dehumidifying, tablets, dry air products, similar like that,
damp rid.
You don't need to leave everything all open like that.
Right.
I mean, our neck of the woods is not as wet, I'm sure, as everybody else's, but
and he says it's in a fully enclosed building. Too,
I think you are overthinking. Yeah. But you want to function those rooms. Make sure you're clean and treating.
Yeah, and we've had the discussion in articles and certain things about, should you leave your slide rooms extended? And some people say, no, you should leave them retracted in storage so you don't have the weight on that and, all this kind of stuff. It's no different than people that are full-timing or, have their units for the entire summertime at a place with their room extended. So I don't think that's an issue, with the mechanism and the weight.
I'd be more concerned with if he's using a dehumidifier on 110 volt, that he's not cycling his batteries too. So he's plugged in all the time while it's inside storage. And
I personally, we use damp rid. You open a few of the cabinet doors and there's not many floor plans that are going to be affected by the slide room coming out, with the cabinets. I mean, if you close those up, there's a few that the cabinets will be closed in certain areas, but crack it just a little bit, get a little bit of damp rid in there. If you do have electricity, then what I would do is put in a small little fan just to get some of that air circulating, inside that unit and
crack open a couple vent lids or
I wouldn't worry too much about it. So I think you're in overthinking, but you know what? That's better than underthinking it. So,
better safe than sorry.
I guess. Yes. So Ron Fortier, a Canadian, watching to learn. Thank you for your time. And I got to say, hey, that was
the Queen. King.
I went through Canada on my way to Alaska for school. I went to a good friend of mine and I took a truck and a camper and we left from northern Iowa in August and we went up to Fairbanks, Alaska for a semester of college and went through Canada. And I remember going through customs and the guy kept saying, what are you doing? Where are you going? And I was like, it was a foreign language to me, but love you guys. Okay. So we got Vince then is in Southern California.
Right.
So you're probably not going to get that 30-degree weather that I'm getting tomorrow. So welcome everybody. Mike is from Grima or Grima?
Mike Grima is from Roseville, California.
Okay, Roseville. All right. Hey, and there's my buddy Snoopy. He's got Snoopy is one of the guys that constantly keeps me on my toes in my forums. So great to see you coming in. And he is the one that asked about the Danfoss refrigerator today, I believe. If that's right, Snoop, let me know. He's got a residential refrigerator. He's had tons of problems with. Says he's got to take it out of the windshield area. He's got to take the windshield out. And I suggested measuring that slide window. We've taken a couple of them out of that one. And one of the things we did, we had a unit that we, I can't remember the brand, but had a really narrow door. And since he said, yes, sir. And since the refrigerator was bigger than the door, we took the door off the refrigerator and we sawzalled the refrigerator down rather than taking that windshield out because I never want to take a windshield out.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You can avoid it.
Yeah,
don't do it.
And if you are taking the windshield out, make sure you have another gasket. Replace the gasket. So pull both windshields if possible.
One thing I want to jump in before we can kind of continue on because I don't know if we mentioned it. I don't remember. We're doing a fancy mug giveaway.
Hey, there we go.
Make sure you guys are putting on their hashtag mug. If
you are on the end, and we're going to draw
one these fancy mugs.
Exactly. Good catch, Zach. But to get back on Snoopy's topic on that Danfoss, if you go in, and I sent you the link today of Mike Sokol did a really nice job of reviewing that Danfoss compressor driven. It's a 12-volt refrigerator. And he said he got 36 hours out of a 100-amp lithium battery, 3 times what you would get from a residential. Because from what I got from his article, it said that you know, if you have a residential refrigerator that runs on 112 power through the inverter, you're losing a lot of energy, you know, rather than getting a 12-volt style compressor driven refrigerator. So it was interesting. He's got 2 or 3 articles on Everchill, I believe, is one. Dan Foss. Don't quote me. And one thing too, I want to bring up. We were talking with Chuck about this earlier. Is that, you know, we're providing some general information, some comments. You know, before going out and spending thousands and thousands of dollars or opening gas valves and stuff like that, make sure that you check with your technicians. Make sure that you do your homework. Know your abilities. You know, I built a house and I went and I researched absolutely everything I could on the plumbing and the electrical and all this other stuff. Not that I was going to do it, but that I wanted to be educated. And that's what we're trying to help you with, is give you some ideas, some places to look and be better educated, you know, to talk with technicians when you get to that stuff that, you know, is pretty critical. You know, you start talking gas and electrical. You know, I've got a line I always use in everything when people ask me about electrical stuff. I said, I can troubleshoot you far enough to get you electrocuted, and Steve, the technical mechanic, can fix it. Who would you like to talk to first? So make sure
we can't express safety.
Yes.
Because we see owners that come in all the time that have tried something themselves and have hurt themselves, burned themselves, done something. So please be careful.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we try to give you the best advice that we can, but we don't want to mislead you in any way and have you do something.
Well, there's so many things that, you know, are not familiar to you, the regular residential repairs you do and things you have. You know, one classic example is I get a lot of questions that how do I replace my awning fabric? And I tell them you take it to a technician.
Yeah.
I have seen personally that spring that's up in that canister, if you are not completely aware of what that thing's going to do, it almost ripped a guy's hand off.
Yeah, I've watched it fillet guys' hands wide open.
And these are people that know what they're doing.
Yep.
And so, you know, you really have to evaluate what you're doing. And we get you to a point where this is probably what's happening. And I would always advise to take that spring. I have never done a video on replacing the spring and the fabric in that. Now I have on a slide room topper because those are pretty basic. Yeah. But, you know, you start getting into some of that dangerous stuff, and that's the things you really need to take it to a technician. We're going to help you get through the easy stuff. So, all right. So we got the next person. Krista is. Hi, guys. Hi, Krista. She's got a 22 Jayco J-Flight 28 BHOK. They are coming up with some really funky names, aren't they? To use or not to use the Dexter Easy Lube axle if used correctly, or just go with the old school to annually repack bearings.
Old school.
Conflicting online stuff. What do you think? Old school.
Yeah, I think that's really up to preference. I mean, a lot of times when the manufacturers of these products are coming out, they are coming out with the idea of like, hey, it's easier, right? You don't have to do as much stuff. Me personally, I like to make sure things are done and things are maintenance and things. I prefer the old school pack and bearings. But it's up to you. You know, it's the same kind of deal with like flooded batteries. Yeah, they make flooded batteries that are regular pop top flooded, and they also make seal flooded batteries. And really the biggest benefit is I don't have to do as much maintenance. It's your preference.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of look at it too. It's the, you know, how much you're using it, how many miles you're going to put on the stuff. So what the Dexter Easy Lube is when you have an axle, you've got a spindle and the bearing goes on the spindle and the nut. And to grease that, you have to take it all apart, clean it, and grease it by hand. The Easy Lube bearing is a full spindle, and it's got a zerk on the outside, and it's got a tube or a raceway that goes all the way into the back part of that spindle. And then you can put grease in it. It comes in from the backside and pushes it out. Now, you know, so it's easier to do. I am not a big fan of Bearing Buddies because they pretty much grease the outside of the RV in my flying down the road. But I have used the Easy Bearings. We had I ran a company that had 3 trucks and trailers, and we put 125,000 miles a year on each one of those. And we had some with regular bearings, and we had one with the Easy Bearing system. And if you maintain them and you know what's going on, and we've done this a couple times, This is one of your best tools you can have. This is called an infrared thermometer, and it is just oh, sorry, Zach, that was going to be your cool tool, wasn't it?
No, I got a whole bunch. More.
All right. But what you do with this is once a day when you're traveling down the road, you go out and you hit with this laser here, and you hit the hub and the brake drum and the tire. And if you're running 75 degrees ambient temperature, it's not uncommon to see it up into the 95 or 85, 90 temperature range. But when it spikes up into that 120, 150, 200, then you know something's going on. Then you know those bearings are getting dry. And even Dexter, who says with that Easy Loop, they recommend once a year taking that apart and checking those bearings anyway. So you can't just go in and hit that Zerk and never have to pull them apart and inspect it.
And that's what most people think when they see that system, which is why they have all these other problems and stuff's kind of hit and miss on them, is they think it's a one and done. You put it on, you can just forever pump grease into that thing and it's good to go.
Well, and unfortunately they're told that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
not by Dexter, but you know what? Everybody's looking for that little aha when they're going shopping and somebody says, oh, you know, these new Easy Lubes, you never have to do the bearings.
Yeah.
Wrong. That is not.
And if that was the case, every manufacturer would have them already on the units.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's.
Well, and Lippert has a version of that too. You know, so they're all looking for a wow thing, but I just, you know, I'm an old school myself, and once a month or once a year, or if I see the spike, you know, again, then that's when you would go with it. So Barbara, how do solar panels wear in the winter? Snow, load, ice. And Zach, you're kind of the expert on solar panels, I guess, right?
So how do solar panels wear in the winter? Usually warm, like sweaters and mittens. Just kidding.
They're reflective.
Yeah. So no, when they just go through and they design solar panels, they're not like marketing to specific areas. So
they test them.
Yeah. The idea is going to be, hey, they are going to be in snow. They are going to be in ice. They're designed to withstand that. The big thing with like snow and ice and all that, you want to make sure you can try to clean that stuff off if possible. You don't want all that stuff just sitting on there.
Yeah. And not so much just the solar panel, but the
roof.
Air conditioner shroud. But one of the things too that I've researched a lot on solar panels, and I've talked to both ZAMP and Go Power, and then now Expion, there is a big difference in quality.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are 3 different levels of crystals that are used in these. And the cheaper version that you're finding at all these discount places out there, they don't last. You know, they're going to have UV degradation off of them. They're going to have issues with the angles and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think we had this discussion last week, didn't we? Cover versus no cover. I think too. You know, I mean, that's something that, in my opinion, the cover really helps with the decals and, you know, the fading of fiberglass and solar panels and sealants and other things too. But
and it just falls back to personal preference. Like me with the covers, you know, when I talk about for here in California in our area, they make different types of covers for different seasons, from different territories or areas. I'm always worried about the consumer going to fall down, get hurt, trip on something in the roof because it's so heavy and hard to manhandle to get it on there. But it does protect them. But then there's different qualities, there's different levels. People still think that, you know, hey, now that I got a cover on there, it's not going to mold underneath. It's still going to mold in between the RV and the cover. And so, I mean, in our area, it's basically going to protect it from the sun, mostly what's going to damage it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, it helps deflect. Yeah, hashtag mug.
Yeah, make sure you guys are throwing hashtag mug.
I haven't seen a hashtag mug yet on here, so I guess
I see a couple. Barbara did it.
Okay.
Ron did it.
I guess I just didn't see it. Okay. So here's there you go, Mike. Thank you. So let's get back to this Denise. Who did that? Oh, come on. I think Chuck's back. Now leave it up here. Okay, so Denise has a 07 Itasca Spirit, which is a Class A, I believe. They made a couple. They made an A and a C, over the years. But anyway, she has got a parasitic drain on the starter battery. So either way, it's a motorized.
Mhm.
And this is something that's pretty common. I'll let you guys go first.
It could be.
I mean, I don't really know what it's gonna be. It could be a lot of stuff, especially with it being an 07. A lot of people start to add aftermarket stuff to that engine bay, and it causes a lot of issues. Now, some of those, probably right around in there, a little bit older, the refrigerators had those dehumidifier switches that people would leave on, and it would kill those batteries like
overnight. Yeah.
Well, and I think maybe what she has is something that is actually normal, because when you put your RV in storage, my folks did this for years, and in the spring it'd come out and be deader than a doornail, because your engine computer, your ECU, has certain settings on how you drive and how it's got the oxygen sensor. It's got all these settings in there that is going to draw battery power. So you are never going to disconnect that battery completely solid. All your radio presets. Have you ever noticed anytime your battery goes dead, you unhook it, all the preset stations that you had in there are now gone. All that has to have battery power to keep that in the memory of it. So you will have a drain from your computer ECU, and you will have a drain from your radio, and there could be other things. You're right.
This is one of those ones where, when you hear the parasitic draw is such a term that's thrown around quite a bit. And that may not be the case. Like in this comment, it doesn't really specify how long the unit, was sitting or so.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. If I'm leaving it for 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time, and I come back out there and it's dead, well, that's not a parasitic draw. That's 100% normal.
Right. And one of the ways you can tell the severity of it is multimeter, very cheap, inexpensive one. Just put it on the DC setting, and then pull your negative cable and put your one probe on the negative cable, the other probe on the post. And now you're running, if you've got a drain through it, it's going to run through here, and it's going to tell you what it is. Mm-hmm. We've shown that several times in some videos that we've done over the years, because on the motorhome side, your LP leak detector is going to pull a drain, and that's going to do about 1.5. So if you see something in the 3, 4, 5 range, we just go in and start pulling out fuses until we find out, what else is hooked to that. What's
that's the easiest way to do it.
I had
lights in, on, whatever.
I had an owner here today that was asking about, he was getting ready to come in to replace all his house batteries, inverter batteries, and he had a draw that he couldn't find. And I explained to him that we had a coach here a while back that had been to 3 different shops. Nobody could figure out where the draw was. Well, it ended up coming down to something as simple as a compartment door light switch. You open up the compartment door and you push the switch in and on, it goes off. Well, we actually turned our phone on to camera mode to record, tossed it in the compartment, went around shutting all the doors and jiggling on them. And then we found out, hey, this one compartment, the light keeps coming on. So it could be just something simple. It could be loose connections, especially on a 2007. That's already, 15 years old.
Right.
Check all your battery terminals, peel back the insulation on the battery cables a little bit, and check to make sure they're not corroded. Because something could not be charging or allowing it to shut off correctly too. Yep.
Well, and in an 07, I think they've got the battery isolation manager too. So you've got your engine is hooked to your house batteries. So you could be draining back through if that's not stopping.
If there's a big boy solenoid or bidirectional relay or bird,
and Zach alluded to in 07. There's so many aftermarket things that could be installed. Fog lights, all this accessories that you go to the local auto store and say, oh, I got to have that and put on here. And so if there was a little bit of that done, then, there's so many things you're going to have.
The antenna booster.
Yep. Okay.
Anything that's feeding out through it.
All right. So Snoopy said that the slide window is a bit too small. Well, you got a Sawzall.
Cut the hole bigger and put a bigger window in.
Get a bigger window. Okay, so Sharon Steele from Southern Nevada, watching to get educated. have a 14-foot Rove light. Well, welcome, Sharon. Appreciate your coming in.
Hashtag mug.
Hashtag mug. Barbara did it again. All right. So what's going to happen is every time you put a hashtag mug in here, we are going to do a lottery drawing for 1.9 billion mugs. No, wait a minute. That was the other one. Yes, this mug is worth 1.9 billion if you take it in annuities. So, anyway, there's another. Oops, exactly. Hashtag mug. Good job, Sharon.
All right.
And the computer automatically.
Yep, it's going to be
it's not us picking it out. It actually randomly draws somebody.
Yes. Okay, so Michael, welcome back again. Michael, he's a pretty regular here. 2002 Bounder Class A. On Monday, the RV shop replaced my Quickie step motor, which is now owned by Lippert. Gears, magnetic door switch, and control unit with a new Quickie Series 22 to 41. Now the red light wall switch has to be in the off position to work and in the on position not to work. So now the red light on the switch is on when the steps are turned off. Did the RV shop wire it wrong?
I'll be right back.
Okay. I think he's going to get a switch, but Zach, what do you think?
So we actually had one in here. Actually, the coach might still be here. Very similar situation. And what it ended up being was the magnet was backwards. It was the opposite magnet. And so then the technician wired the motor backwards to compensate for it. And then it was causing it to where the switch was completely backwards. And it was as simple as putting the correct step magnet in there and then wiring the motor back the correct way.
Right. So, and typically that switch is just going to be a 3-post switch. Mm-hmm. And it's going to basically, you've got one wire goes to the light and the other two are ground and power. Mm-hmm. And it's going to, when the magnet comes in and the way the step works is the old style had a plunger. When the door shut, it pushed the plunger in, but that was starting to bend the plungers too much. And so let me get this off here so we can. So the new ones now are just magnets. So it comes in and it makes a connection or what they call closed circuit, meaning power is going to run through and say, yep, shut this off, turn this light on. And, so I think you're right. You got the magnet. If it was installed backwards and it was, so then what's happening? It was opening when you close the door and then closing when you open the door. Yeah. And so they rewired the motor thinking that, well, somewhere I got the wiring wrong. So they flipped that around. So now it works, but the light's thinking, hey, the light's obviously getting power.
Yeah.
When that is in the off position. So I don't know if Dustin's going to bring a switch in so we can take a look at it, but I think it's not so much a switch issue as it is there he is.
I think he took a vacation.
Oh, okay.
I breezed in. Sorry, everyone.
That's all right. Didn't know if you were going to get a switch or not. Alan, Northwest Arkansas. So Northwest Arkansas is up Janesville and so forth. I have been that route. Is it 77, I think? My brother lives in Conway. So we made many, many trips. And thank goodness for that bypass on Lookout Mountain because it used to be you had to go through that 17-mile nightmare. He's got a 2021 Jayco J Feather and a chance for a mug.
Yeah.
Snoop says, I didn't notice a link for Mike's test on Danfoss. I thought I sent that to you. I will, let me make a note. And
there's a great picture of Dave's top of his head.
Top of my head. Hope that didn't blind everybody out there. That was Mount Rushmore before the snow. Okay. And there's another hashtag mug and another hashtag mug. Here. All right. You guys are getting the hang of it. And Carol from Northwest Arkansas. So Robert now says he has a Winnebago 29B and have it plugged in when not in use. Are there any concerns about long-term plug-in through the automatic transfer switch? Go ahead, guys.
Not necessarily the process of, hey, through the transfer switch. You don't want to leave the unit plugged in all the time. The batteries are not designed to constantly take a charge. Yes, the converter is going to float the charge when necessary, but it doesn't need to constantly be doing that. Those batteries need to be cycled, up and down. They're designed to perform a chemical reaction inside the battery. And if you're constantly keeping them loaded, then the one plate is constantly loaded with ions, and it's not allowing it to do what it needs to do, and it's bad for the battery. So you should, once a month, once every couple months or whatever, unplug the coach, use some stuff, drain the batteries down, plug it back in. They need to perform that function.
And most everybody, when they're living in them,
and they evaporate.
Yeah,
will evaporate.
Assuming he's got lead acid batteries.
Yeah.
And with a Winnebago 29B, which I'm not sure, and it's challenging now because Winnebago bought Grand Design, and then they bought the Sunnybrook, and now they're calling the trailer side Winnebagos. So when somebody says I got a Winnebago 29B, it could be a motorized, could be a Class C, or it could be a trailer. And typically the trailers are going to have lead acid batteries, and they use Napa. That's what they've been using for the last 10 years or so. And but you're right. And most of what Winnebago does is they are using the Progressive Dynamics charger in those, and it will do a 13.8 charge for about 8 hours, and then drops down to 13.2. So it is a good idea to kind of cycle those a little bit if you're able to.
The bad thing about it is, think about it as like, if it's constantly, for you guys that are watching, if it's constantly charging the batteries and they're not being drained down and charged back up, it can potentially dry out the water that's in the battery itself, which then will cause it to go into boost mode, which will then can either catch the batteries on fire or burn up the converter. So we don't want you to damage, especially if you have a big Class A motorhome, you have an inverter converter that are several thousands of dollars. We don't want you to ruin those. So, if you're going to plug it in all the time at your house, say whether you're storing it, for the other gentleman's running like a dehumidifier or a fan in it, or you're just keeping it plugged in to keep stuff in your refrigerator cool as a secondary refrigerator, once a month, go out, unplug the power, turn it on for 3, 4, 5 hours, drain the batteries down as if you're dry camping, and then plug it back in and let it charge back up. But still keep in mind that, check the water level in your batteries as needed.
Yep. Another option too is take the batteries out, bring them back to your garage. Just put them on a charger.
Yeah, you can. We that's such a, I argue that with people back and forth all the time, because if you have 6 batteries in your diesel pusher.
I agree, but I'm saying on a 29B, he's got
all the wiring.
And a lot of people are going to say, well, I can't get out there once a month. I put it in here and it's back, and so there's a lot of variables. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you that many batteries in play, even if it's 4, if you don't take a picture or make yourself a map of where those battery connections went and don't mark them, we get that all the time. Somebody's pulled them out because they were used to doing it. Exactly.
Like that one?
Yeah. They pull them out to go and bench charge them or to keep them up to par, and then they don't know how it got wired back in, and then they're bringing it in where they've done, like you said, they made 24 volts or made 18 volts and damaged something.
Yep.
So leave them in the coach is my advice, and cycle them.
CT had won a mug. Congratulations, CT.
Yeah, congrats.
All right.
Snoop Baxley learned high school packing wheel bearings the old-fashioned way. That's right. Sometimes we get a little too fancy. Yep. Well, they do make the new things. You can put them in the cradle. Go. No.
That's what we use here. Yeah.
That is so wrong.
Terry likes to pack them the old-fashioned way.
I've done enough hand packing.
I think he just likes to
spin it, keep going, spin it, keep going.
It keeps his hands moisturized.
That's what I'm thinking.
All right. So Krista says, okay, thank you all. We are new to RVing, but don't mind getting our hands dirty. Learning all the time. There you go. So she can pack her own bearings.
There you go. That's what you do.
So Carol says, thank you, Dave, for answering my question, solving the problem. A year ago on your forum about my propane cooktop stove, I replaced the 3 wires from the striker to the burner, and now they work. Well, great. Congratulations, Carol. I'm glad we could help, and thank you for reading and reaching out. Hey, Dan, how you doing? So now Mike says, with our hot Sacramento Summer Valley temperatures.
Looks like we lost Dave there for a second, so hopefully he'll pop back on.
Dave.
There he is.
Oh.
You're back.
Huh?
You're back.
Okay, I was gone for a second.
You did a Frosty the Snowman for a second.
Okay. Cool. So Mike
now
is
you did it again.
Sacramento, Summer Valley temperature.
There you are.
So mine seems to work fine. Is anybody else having problems seeing me or going through? Okay. So Mike asked about cold tire temperature pressure. Should I inflate to the manufacturer's specs, i.e. 80 PSI, or underinflate them before traveling? Now, this is a great question for Roger Marble, and he's not here right now. But I'll refer to you guys first, and then I'll jump in with what I found through RV Safety and Education Foundation.
I always I always tell people, whether it's, I mean, it doesn't matter, motorhome, car, motorcycle, whatever the manufacturer spec states on the sticker, that's what you should go by. You, at your own discretion, can vary from that, whether you want to run them a little colder and then heat them up as you go, or opposite, or whatever it may be. But the manufacturers, when they go through and test and rate and do all the stuff, that's where they say they should be at. Unless, of course, you have changed the tire size or something like that.
Well, yeah, and let me jump in here in a little bit and address the cold tire temperature. And cold means as that unit is sitting, ambient temperature, not having gone down the road. So cold could be 60-degree temperatures. Cold could be 80-degree temperatures. Like you were saying, your hot summers out there. Cold is as it's sitting overnight and whatever ambient temperature. That's what you should check to. Then, proper pressure is a totally different situation. And it varies between travel trailers and trucks and motorhomes. And, so there's a variety of different places you can find pressure recommendations. On the side of the tire, it will tell you maximum pressure at maximum weight. Well, that's not proper tire inflation.
Yes.
That is if your rig is completely loaded. Now, they have changed a little bit of the education on those. Most of the trailer tires that you see under the big fifth wheels and stuff like that, what's on the side of the tire is generally, it's going to be close, because you're going to be really close to GVWR. But you think about these fifth wheels and these motorhomes that can hold 26,000 pounds GVWR. And if you're not at that 26,000 pound rate, then you're overinflating that tire, and you're going to cup it up and not have as much on the actual tread on the ground. The only way to tell proper pressure in those situations is to weigh the coach by individual wheel positions, if possible. Go to the tire charts at rvsafety.com and find your chart, your tire, your model, dual or single position, and where it's at. And that, it may not be at that. So what a lot of manufacturers are doing is they're weighing their coaches before they go out the door. They're getting an estimate and they're putting a label on it that says, at this rating. Instead of 110, like your Michelin says, you want it at 90. And Carol is going to be writing an article here at some point in time on rvtravel.com. She bought a Newmar 40-foot on a Ford chassis, and it was all over the road. It was a nightmare drive for her. She put, I don't know, $10,000 worth of Sumo springs and all this other stuff out there, and it still does not ride to her specs. And rather than going to liquid springs, which is going to cost her $20,000 or more, she's trying to figure out what she can do. And, I told her the very first thing you have to do is go weigh the coach. That 40-foot Newmar is going to be heavy, heavy, heavy. And so she started taking stuff out and then started checking tire pressure and has gotten the proper tire inflation with the weight that she's carrying. And she said it is 50% better, not 100, but 50% better. So, versus going with the Sumo spring. So do some research on your tire, but cold means as it sits, ambient temperature at that point. So, that's where you start from. And then I tell everybody, I don't care what kind of RV you have, get it weighed. Find out where you're at, because you don't know. You keep putting stuff inside this thing
Yeah,
and you've got actual weight ratings, and you've got tongue ratings, and you've got overall ratings that, you know, are very, very important. Very important.
Yep.
So Carol says, a new concern, one of the burners sounds like air is coming through the burner. The blue flame has white tips. I've refilled the tanks in a couple times from different sources. So, Zach, Dustin?
Maybe the tube is off of the
so on this is the range top, referring to the range top.
Yeah.
So a lot of those, when you look at the actual manifold that comes out, it has the little, you know, orifice nipples, and then you have the burner that comes over, and then it has an open chamber that allows the air fuel mixture to come in there. You may have something not correct in that general vicinity that's causing that problem, especially because if it's just on one burner, then I'm not thinking it's going to have anything to do with the propane that you're using, because everything else is working correctly.
Right.
So
I guess,
yeah.
You know,
So
just
look at the stove top and check to make sure that nothing's
come loose out of there,
or
blocking the propane flow, whatever it may be.
Right. So it's very similar to a gas grill, you know, that you see that tube coming in. It's got the little slots in there. So, you know, you're going to mix air with the gas in there. And you're right. One, and I'm assuming she's got 3 burner range.
Mm-hmm.
So the front burner would be a high output, 9,000 BTU, and the back two would be 7,000. So if it's the 9,000, that would kind of make a little bit of sense that there's something in that, you know, that tubing in there. Make sure everything is clean, everything is tight, and you know, from that point on, I guess I would probably refer into a technician, because now you're starting to talk about gas and, you know, those things. So that makes a little bit of difference.
You have a leak on something. So be real careful with messing with that.
Yeah. So Joe's got hashtag and Sharon says she's got a solar panel on top of the trailer. I removed the battery from the trailer for the winter. Is it okay to put a tarp on the trailer for the winter? And I think we've kind of talked about this. You know, Dustin had a good point on the condensation, the mold. You know, it's not going to affect the solar panel.
Yeah, no, not at all.
In any way. The only thing I would be careful is that, you know, get a good cover. I like the Adco covers. You know, they've customized them. The cheaper covers you got out there, your solar panel's probably going to have some sharp corners. Yeah. And, you know, if it's not custom built and it's not secure, excuse me, a lot of times I like to put some swim noodles around the edges just to buffer that really sharp edge that you're going to get, because it'll tear the cover apart.
Yeah, if not swim noodles, even pipe covers. I mean, we take the bigger swim noodles and then fit them on the edges of it. That'll protect it.
Yeah. I just find swim noodles are cheap at the dollar store. Yep. I go down and get a $1 swim noodle, cut it down.
We wrap all our scaffolding in swim noodles. We have like 6 scaffoldings. They all have swim noodles all over them.
Dennis Hughes says C. So that must have been Dennis was at. Let me back up here and find that mug. That's not it. Dennis Hughes says, so here he was, new watcher from California, 07.
Oh, he's out
here. That's a Class C that he has. So most likely on a Ford chassis. They did make a few Chevys, but they were the smaller ones. And so again, I would definitely do that multimeter test, see what kind of amp draw you have, and then start looking at those aftermarket things that have been put in. And it could be as simple as, like you said, you know, you start seeing somebody that's cobbled up the battery posts and added, you know, some wiring in the battery posts. Like, you know, those start to drain it in a hurry. Okay, let me get back to there's Mark, there's Carol.
I see Stefano, one of our customers.
All right. I have a solar panel on the top. Vince, could outside temperature changes cause roof to lift along the truss seams a bit? And you know, the biggest challenge for RV manufacturers is to design stuff that is going to expand and contract with temperature changes. And I know when I was at Winnebago, we had the test lab and we would have hot chamber booths, and we would see where stuff would actually expand and contract 3 inches. And, especially where the front cap meets the roof material, that's called the J channel. The mock-up is the site of it, but that will literally, one of the things will crawl about 2 inches where the other one won't, because it's a hard plastic versus a rubber or whatever. And so you got to make something that will be flexible enough to move, and the silicone's moving in it. So outside temperatures is going to make stuff grow and contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the classic example that I remember is back in high school, we used to have these old cars that had the felt headliner, and then when the adhesive let go on that headliner, it hang down. So when you got in the cold weather and you started it, you couldn't see it. Once the heater, then it would shrink back up, and it's all because of moisture in cold and hot.
Yeah.
So
we had a unit that we put a brand new roof on, and we had to overlay it and all that stuff because it was rotten up there, and we had to take it out and put new stuff in. And the gentleman kept having problems, exactly like you're saying, is, hey, it's lifting, it's coming loose, it's whatever. Come to find out, every time he stores it, he would plug in a floor heater, and it was sitting right in the middle of the hallway between the walls, and right where it was putting all the heat up, it would lift up the center of that roof.
Yep. But here, Vince,
he was putting it in his bathroom in the shower.
Yeah, right in that cubby area.
In that cubby, we said, "Hey, did you pull this out and set this in the middle and plug in?" He goes, "Yeah, that's how I heat the whole trailer." And we're like, "Oh no, you're causing heat to build up."
You could see it. You could plug it in and leave it there for a few hours, and
it
come back, and it'd be different. Yeah.
Yep. So here's what he's saying too. It's starting to get cold there, and he's noticing a panel slightly lifting. And I would say probably what's happening in this case is that you got a moisture leak at some point somewhere, and so one panel has a little more
camera.
Yeah.
See if you can get a thermal camera or buy one online. We bought one through Amazon, and you can go in and see maybe there's an area underneath that roof that's missing insulation.
Yep.
Or if it was hand insulation, or there's something in there that's causing a leak.
Yep. So Snoopy gets his hashtag in. Congratulations. Denise says aftermarket stereo is my suspicion. I was going to say suspension. No,
that's probably it. That's probably what's drawing your battery.
If you got an aftermarket stereo suspension, then it sounds like you got a good ride. Sorry. Thanks, guys. Billy King says, so we got a couple more questions, but one of the things I want to do, we've got a new feature tonight that we just decided to start. I do a seminar at shows called Cool RV Tools and Gadgets, and it's a real popular seminar. But Dustin and Zach, you guys have been in the business for 25 some years. I've been doing it for a little more than that, and I've collected a lot of stuff. And so tonight we're going to feature this. It's called Cool Tools, and here is my little Cool RV Tools slide, and I'm going to take the Billy's off of here for a second. But we'll come back to it. Keeps doing it. All right.
He was really adamant about that question.
He wanted that question answered. No. So this is the first one. This is a very rudimentary tool that I have, and I call it the cord hanger. And I had a good friend of mine, an electrician, I saw one day driving down the road, and he had all these cords hanging on racks in the back of the truck. And when I caught up to him, I saw he just went down to the local tire store, got a blown inner tube tire from a tractor or a larger truck. He cut this band out of the center of it. So I just wanted to bring that up so you could see it here. I'm going to take it down, and I'm just going to show you what this looks like. This is just a cut section out of an inner tube. And I've got all these cords, and that's what I was thinking, man, I got coax and I got water hoses and extension hoses. So I take this big wad of coax cable here for my portable satellite dish, my Winegard dish, and I just do a little loop-de-loop in there, and then I've got a hook now that I can put this in. And let me show you how well this works. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This happens to be the compartment we worked on, this 2015 Thor. Look at all those electrical cords hanging up on hooks on the sides, not sitting in the bottom. I always need what's on the bottom of it. So this is a great way to, add something. Zach, I think you got something.
Yeah, well, I mean, mine's not as fancy as yours, of course. Mine's not homemade, but one thing that especially bringing this up, is more so things that you guys should have or should find or should carry because it's going to be helpful to you as an owner. A really good test light.
Yep.
I use test lights all the time. I mean, it's a little bit different when you have a lot of the computer controlled stuff and the voltages are variable and all that. But all your typical 12-volt systems, a test light works awesome. Connecting this to your ground, connecting and probing where you're positive. This one here gives me a voltage reading, so I can use it as a quick voltmeter like you were showing earlier. Mine is also capable of doing the opposite. If I'm trying to find a ground, I can connect this to hot and this here, the light will go green. If you can find one of these, which you should be able to find one at an auto parts store should have one, too. Amazon as well. Get yourself a test light. It's perfect to throw in your toolbox and you will use the heck out of it.
Yeah. Like Zach's saying, especially with the digital voltage meter on them nowadays, that helps so much. You can quickly see what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I'm going to do one more because Chuck really liked this one. I'm going to add this to it. This is called the magnetizer. And I've got, this is on Amazon. I think Gazer's going to put some links to where you can find these at. And this has been a really popular one. I'm going to show you. I'll pop this back off. And whoops, I'll remove that. That's not what I wanted to do. So I got this magnetizer, just a little square, and it's got magnetize or demagnetize. And you go through the magnetizing side just a couple times straight through, and it lines the molecules up. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to switch this over. So now you can see I have a screw on the end of this. It is magnetized. You can do needle nose pliers. You can do even do wire, a coat hanger. Not the plastic ones, of course. Now, when I don't want it to be magnetized and I want to put it in the toolbox and I don't want all the junk to do it, I go to the demagnetizing side, lines them back up, and I have a regular screwdriver. So handy piece to get. I really like that, that unit. And again, those are cool tools, and we're going to be able to put those up. So I'll go back to the comments, and I think it was so Barbara says she's got cord hangers with Velcro. Oh, that's too easy, Barbara. Keep an eye on it. Where was the one alternator tested? Good.
We were on Bill King.
Barbara, do you recommend the fifth wheel travel with the freshwater tank? We got to go up just a little bit. I got to find Bill's because it kept popping off. No, it's not there. Cold spec or hot spec. No problem seeing you, Mike. Give me one second. There it is, Bill King. I'm sorry, I should say bug screen. Was it even before that?
There we go.
There we go. What's your opinion on using bug screens? I'm sure bug screens on the furnace and water heater. Manufacturers, the dealers say not to use them. They will not warranty.
So I've argued a bunch with them, right? And said, why didn't they just add that to them when they built them, right?
Yep.
I love bug screens. I've seen so many water heaters and furnaces catch on fire because pests got in there.
Yep.
And I think when they're worried about like under a warranty, they're worried about if you had leaves or bugs or something make a nest or something that's restricting the airflow. So as long as they're kept clean, there's no problem. If you came into our shop with an RV that didn't have any kind of bug screens on it, we always recommend them.
Yep.
The extended warranty companies, when we call them and we tell them, hey, I want to turn in a claim for a water heater or PC board or anything to do with the appliances, the first question they ask is, did the customer have maintenance records and do they have bug screens? And so if they know they have bug screens and they know it's not a fault of pests getting in there.
Right.
From intrusion. So, I mean.
Yeah. And I've worked with Suburban for years. I was in the warranty department at Winnebago for 2 years, with parts coming back, and they never questioned it. Yeah. I think what happens is a little bit of a paranoia from, some service centers that when they come in and they're rusty and they're full of dirt and all that, then they're going to block airflow. That's when they're going to go.
I've seen people make their own homemade ones where they've used too fine of a mesh.
Yeah.
And so I think
or
that's
plastic
what
bags or paper bags in the back of refrigerators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what we kind of lean toward. But, you know, Valterra makes those. Mud Dauber makes those. Camco makes those.
Yeah.
There's 6 companies that make those bug screens, and they're selling, you know, every version of that. So, I mean, they've been tested to where they're not, if they were going to cause harm, they would stop selling them.
Yeah, they're worth it.
All right.
They're worth it.
We're going to move on. Michael said the magnet came with the motor, but again, I think Zach's recommendation that check that wiring somewhere it's backwards. Even if you got new magnet and new motor, if they're wired backwards, one or the other, then we're going to have problems with it. Carol said yes, we did get your propane stove question. I'm pretty sure we talked about that. I'm going through. I want to catch these because we got quite a few that came in here right at the end. If the mug is really worth 1.9 billion, then I can't afford that. Yes, that is true. Maybe I exaggerated slightly on the cost of that mug, but I don't know. You saw the testimonial; it was really nice. To reverse the wires on the switch. I don't think you reverse the wires on the switch. You know, and really, Michael, what you probably need to do is get a wiring diagram. Lippert is phenomenal in their technical support. There is even an owner's video. You can go through training with it. I went through the certification side of it and get the wiring diagram that they have for that, and make sure the wiring coming off the switch and, you know, to the motor and to the magnet are all in the right place. You should be able to trace this. I'm not a big fan of, you know, just swapping wires when you do that. So we're right now. So you reverse the wires. Billy King says, sorry, should have said bug screen. We got that. I'm going to get 71. By the way, the mug is really worth. Okay, he said that. We're running down. So I think right now, if Ashley is ready, why don't we'll pull this down and let's do the mug giveaway.
All right.
And it's coming. Trust me, folks. There we go. It's the Wheel of Fortune. I'd like to buy a vowel.
All right.
Britt Bailey is the winner. Congratulations, Britt.
Congratulations.
All
right. So if you will, I believe that email Chuck. Yep, there you go. So email Chuck at rvtravel.com, and you will need to provide the shipping information, and we'll get those out to you. So Henry says, Class B, LI3 Coachman owner from Tampa. Welcome, Henry. Appreciate that. And CT says, what if you have a 1.25 battery tender plugged in while in storage? You still need to unplug and take your batteries down. I think that one's fine, because you're just basically topping those off like you would a really small solar panel.
Yeah.
All right. No problem seeing you, Mike. And I'm thinking we don't have a mic here, do we? So wait a minute. I do have a mic. Sorry about that. Sometimes there is a cold spec or hot spec written on the title. Thank you. I'll be here all the week. Yes. And I got all my fans are here too, but I've got them off because it blows my hair around. I have never seen a hot spec written on a tire. I've done a lot of research on these, and it is always what is it? Maximum weight at maximum pressure.
Yeah, max tire pressure. Yeah.
Cold. Both of them say cold on those. I've never seen a hot spec written on a tire, unless it was an article on something, but that generally never happens. So Mike says, perfect, thanks. It makes sense. Great info on the PSI. And for those of you too that you want some more information on the tires, go into rvtravel.com and look at Roger Marble's articles. He's written several great articles. He was a tire engineer. He's an RVer, and he really has some very, very useful information that can help, reduce the amount of tire failures that are out in the market, because that's a big issue. And everybody's blaming Chinese tires and all this kind of stuff. And I know for a fact that RV Safety and Education Foundation is weighing coaches out in the market, and over 50% of RV tires are overloaded today still, even with the education that's out there. So Hamlet has a 33-foot Landau, 1976 Landau, and he needs help. I believe that.
I agree.
He doesn't say what he needs help with. Don't have to worry about batteries. We use motorhome solar to snoop. And who did I just miss? Thanks all, Canada, yay. Do you think Keystone will offer solar panels on older RVs like other brands are doing? Offer add-on solar packs. And they are. She has a 2015. Keystone is partnered with Battleborn and a couple other companies, and they're offering the package that they have standard today is available through their dealers, and it's exclusive through the dealers. So you can get it there. And everybody else says thank you. And we got up to the point. We got our music going, which is, I always say it's my Oscar awards ceremony. I would like to thank Zach for showing us what hair looks like.
That's right.
You notice me and that globe have the same features, right?
Yes, we do.
One of these days we'll have to get you the Mr. Shaven.
I always wear a hat. So anyway, we'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Appreciate it. Make sure you get to rvtravel.com and look at the articles. We've got a couple coming this week that are going to be really fun. And thanks for joining us. Come back next week. Tell your friends. Tell your friends' friends. And we thank Ashley in the background helping us with the music and all the stuff, and Chuck. So everybody have a great week. What's left of the fall. We're going to get down into 30 degrees tomorrow. It's 60 today. It's like, oh, no, please. So with that, good night, everybody.
Have a good night. Travel safe.